My name is Pete, and welcome to my garage. Welcome back to Pete's Garage, where today I think I'm going to start up my car. And I say I think I'm going to because I keep finding things that I need to do before I actually start it up. I do have the wiring mostly figured out here. I have a couple more wires that I need to run to the inside of the car, like the check engine light, the data line, all that, to be able to tune it, which is what I am going to do right now. But I also have to be able to bypass the anti-theft system, or EWS, that is on the BMW, because it is expecting an OK signal from the BMW's computer, which isn't there. So I need to bypass that, and I have figured it out, and I will show you what we have to do. All right, as you can see, I have my meter lead connected to, this is the starter wire. I have it pulled up from down below. I have it right here, and I have the other side of the alligator clamp ran to ground right now, just so I can test this out to make sure I'm getting power to my starter wire. All right, so in here, underneath right here, there is a module up here that plugs in right underneath the dash, and there's a couple of black wires that pretty much the module, once everything is a-okay, it decides, hey, these two wires, it just connects those two wires and allows power to go from my ignition switch right in here up to that starter wire. And you can see right there that I have 0 volts. And you can see I got 12.0 volts right there. Boom. So that will allow the vehicle to crank once I do that. So I need to go in there and solder those two wires together underneath there. All right, before I start this engine up, I need to hook up the transmission cooler lines, because when it does start, the transmission is going to start pumping fluid. And if I don't have the whole cooler connected and everything, it's going to pump out the fluid all over my garage floor. So what I need to do is I need to get my transmission cooler line set up. And I took the factory lines, and you can see a tiny piece of the factory hose still on there. And I went to a local hydraulics shop, and then they actually crimped on some -6 lines with a, I guess it's a male-to-male adapter, because they only had some female ones. But it was actually pretty affordable. I just had 2 of those made, just like this, that go to my transmission cooler at the front of the car, right in front of the radiator. So back in here, in between these two, is the transmission cooler. If I spread those like that, you can kind of see that transmission cooler back here in front of the AC condenser. So right in here is my transmission cooler. The power steering cooler is right here. So I just need to adapt my AN transmission cooler lines. All right, so my transmission cooler fittings are right here. And one is longer than the other, and it goes on top. So they go in there like this. And there's O-rings right there, so I got to make sure I get those in there. Alright, so I got one that's a little longer than the other, so it'll go up top. And then I'll have to figure out a way to secure these. Alright. Tranny cooler lines are getting pretty darn close to being done. I just got to find a way to secure these up there so they don't dangle, but it's looking pretty good as far as that goes. All right, so I've got spark plug wires and ignition coils on. The harness is completely plugged in, and I need to put some transmission fluid in it. Going with some Dextron 6. This low car dipstick, oh, it's got the smallest opening in it. Takes forever. That came with a piece, but I left it in my E36 when I sold it to the guy. So he's got himself a little filler for a low car dipstick. But this funnel seems to work, but it's very slow to accept fluid. Okay, I still have to wire in my OBD2 port, and I need to wire it in the inside of the car so I can then change my tune for the large injectors here. These are about 85-pound injectors, so I'll need to put my injector data in for those. I also want to change over the tune to a flex fuel tune. So I have to change the operating system, and then hopefully whenever I start it, we don't throw that belt, because that would suck, and then I have to buy the CTSV accessory drive. Oh boy, getting close. This is a little nerve-wracking. I have an OBD2 port wired into the PCM right now. It's a little janky. I haven't cleaned up the wiring completely. I want to make sure that all my sensors are reading correctly. I have the wiring harness completely installed. It's just not 100% wrapped up and everything cleaned up. But I just want to make sure that it's going to read all the, like I said, read the sensors correctly. And I need to make some tune adjustments. What I need to do in the tune to get this correct is I need to set this up for a 3-bar map sensor, right? However, the operating system that I can only run on this PCM with a flex fuel tune is only a 2-bar tune, but I can put the data in for a 3-bar sensor. I also need to make sure I get my intake air temp sensor scaled correctly. I'm going to make sure that my throttle position sensor here reads correctly. That's pretty much it. And I also want to make sure that the flex fuel sensor is reading correctly also. I have to put an operating system into this PCM that's a flex fuel operating system. So I have to, right now it's tuned as a 2002 F-body. However, there was no flex fuel setup on an F-body. So I have to put in a 2002 Tahoe operating system, and then I'm actually going to do something called a segment swap with a 2002 Chevy Avalanche and take the transmission and transmission diagnostic sections or segments of the tune and put it into this PCM for the 4L80E transmission. So I have to do a couple things before I can get this running the way I need. Also, these injectors are about 85-pound injectors. I need to get the correct injector data put in the PCM. And, there's quite a bit of stuff going on to get this thing to start up and run right. All right, so I got my tuning software out right here, and I need to program into the car the base program for a 2002 Tahoe. So I have the VIN off of this as operating system right here, 122.16.125 is the one that gives me flex fuel capability. So if I go to the fuel tab right here, I also have a flex fuel over here on this one that is enabled, where there's no flex fuel on an O2 F body. So I need to program the computer with this VIN from GM's TIS. So over here on this computer, I have GM stuff pulled up. We're going to do replace and program the ECU. And we're going to tell it it's a Chevrolet 2002 light duty truck and a Tahoe. Because in 2002, they made Tahoes that had flex fuel capability that still used the PCM that I'm using. So, and now the VIN that's in here is for an F body. The 4th digit is an F. I need to actually change that VIN to this one that's off of this tune right here, off of a Tahoe. So, 1GNEK. All right, we're going to program the powertrain control module. Now this puts all the calibration stuff in that was for a 2002 Tahoe. everything from the transmission calibration and diagnostic stuff, which is actually a 4L60E, and I have an 80, so I'm going to have to do a segment swap with another tune for that part. But it gives me my operating system, the engine calibration, which I'm going to change, and the diagnostic stuff, which we have to change. The fuel segment, I don't need to worry about, other than the fact that it actually is the flex fuel part. And then we have like the AC system and speedometer stuff and all that. So now we're just going to go next, and this thing should load it up. It takes a few minutes. And then we'll have to do a segment swap for the transmission part of the tune here in a minute. Now I got HP tuners out here, and I need to pull the stock tune off of this computer that I just programmed. It thinks it's an O2 Tahoe now. As I hit gather info, it's going to tell me here in a second. My operating system right now is the one that I want, that 122.16.125. Before it was a 12.125. So the 16.125 is the operating system that's a flex fuel. So now I need to read this. Tell you what, it reads it a lot faster than it used to. Of course, this is only a 411 PCM, so it's a little bit slower processor and everything, but the 411 is pretty versatile. If you wanted to go with drive-by-wire setup instead of cable throttle, you could step up to the P59 PCM, which is the green and blue connectors, and they're a little faster processor, and they have a few more tables and stuff. But this is gonna do what I need to do. Although I can only go 2 bar, I can't go 3 bar with this PCM and do flex fuel. That's the tricky part. If I wanted to go 3 bar, I'd have to step up to one of those P59 PCMs, and you have to make sure you have one that has IAC drivers in there, which some of them did, but I think they say get it off of a van or something, an express van, to make sure you have IAC drivers, because those had cable throttle instead of electronic throttle. I'm only running hopefully 12 PSI of boost, so I'm going to be pretty close to the top side of a 2 bar setup. So we have that. Now I have a flex fuel category right here that I didn't have before. And so that's going to be pretty good. And under fuel, general on fuel, my stoich table, instead of just being one thing, saying 14.69, now I have an alcohol percentage, and depending on the alcohol percentage that sensor that we installed reads, it'll change the stoich value of how much fuel it wants to put in. So that's a good start. Now my flow rate and all this other stuff, I need to change all my injector things, but I also want to put the 4L80E stuff in there, because if I go to the trans segment of this, it still says 4L60E, and simply changing this to 4L80E does not do what I need it to do. It's not going to do what I need it to do. I actually need to change the background stuff, so I need to do a segment swap. All right, so I'm going to open up a compare file, and I already have an O2 Avalanche file that has a 4L80E. So this right here, it also has the same operating system that mine has. And you can see right here, I can only go to a 2 bar on this one and not a 3 bar. But, so I have the flex fuel set up there, and if I go into the compare and segment swapper, I can come down to the transmission side of things, copy that, and the transmission diagnostic side of things, copy those, and I will import those, close it, and then I'm going to save this, open that file, Tahoe with the 4L80E segments, write the vehicle, and we are going to write entire right there. All right, so we finally got all the tuning stuff put in, all of my engine, fuel injector stuff, transmission stuff's all switched over to the 4L80E. Now is time for the moment of truth. Is it going to start? I just made a lot of changes. Time to wake up the neighborhood. Now, hopefully it doesn't throw the belt off, because I made that. All right, here we go. First startup. Okay. Whew, stinks. And obviously hasn't had any tuning done. Yeah, it needs a little work on the tune. All right. I'd say that's a success. Now I need to get my cooling system set up so I can run it longer than 2 seconds and then fix why it's not staying running. But let's make sure there's no code setting. Cool thing, so far it didn't throw the belt, and I did give it a little bit of throttle, so that's good. So that's a plus. That's whew, I'm excited. I'm pretty speechless. This is pretty awesome. So now I just need to get the cooling system wrapped up and get our cooling hoses on there, and then once we can run it for a little bit of time, then we can go ahead and try to get it tuned in and put a wideband on it and get everything dialed in. Whew. Awesome. Awesome. I'm thinking my fueling might be off quite a bit because as soon as I gave it some air, it died. So we'll have to see about some open loop fueling, maybe add some fuel or whatnot and get that figured out. But oh man, that is awesome. It starts up. Whew. All right. See you next time. Yeah, it needs a little work on the tune.